Prayer this morning will be offered by the good delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Over the years, ladies and gentlemen, I've been very fortunate enough to have a seat in this chamber, and I've come to know and appreciate a great many of you. Some of you may not be here next year for a variety of reasons, and that inspired me for this prayer. Let us pray. Father, remind us in this room right now, though our earthly politics may differ and the faces in this chamber may change, the constant is that our true King always sits at the throne and never changes. So I pray that as your will is revealed to us as it relates to our political future, we will not be gripped with fear. Knowing you means we do not have to know the future. Remind us of that truth and help us walk in faithfulness, no matter our future political endpoint. Amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March 16, 2022.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered. Petitions, memorials, and other papers. Message from the Senate. Consent calendar number 37. Senate bills introduced in the House. Clerk will read the first bill and committee assignment.
Senate Bill 240, Senator Simon Ayer, House Rules.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of Senate Bill 240 be considered the reading of all the bills on the calendar.
Hearing no objections, the bills are read the first time and referred to the appropriate committee. Special order calendar number 55. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 290, Budget Bill, Fiscal Year 2023. Favorable amendments, Amendment 1.
Recognizing the Chair of Appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Appropriations Committee recommends 48 amendments to the Senate bill, the fiscal 2023 budget bill. Amendments are included in the committee reprint and in the committee report. As I said Monday, Appropriations Committee has a history of producing budgets that are both fiscally prudent and socially responsible, and this year is no exception.
Hold on one second. Can we give silence so that the budget can be read? Remarks, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This budget preserves our resources by leaving a $537 million structural surplus and providing more than $3.3 billion in cash and reserves. More importantly, the budget we are considering today invests in our greatest assets, our citizens. It maintains our commitment to bettering the education for our youth and directs state's resources to those Marylanders who have the greatest need. This budget provides strategic investment in capital infrastructure as well as the backbone of our state's government, the hardworking employees. The committee also restricted funding for established priorities, which we hope that the governor will fund. Madam Speaker, now I would like to turn to the committee amendments. Remember that this year, the House is considering the budget as passed by the Senate. House actions that differ from the Senate are set out in italics in the committee report and the committee reprint of the bill. Senate actions which we, the committee, did not agree are struck through, and other actions that we had agreed on and appropriations have also been adopted. As has been the practice in the past, I will be introducing the committee amendments in groups. After describing the amendments, I will then move for each group to be adopted. I ask that members hold any additional amendments until after the committee amendments have been considered. With your permission, Madam Speaker, let me now turn to the first group of amendments.
Yes.
Amendment number 1 through number 8 pertain to the Maryland General Assembly, the Judiciary, the Maryland Energy Administration, the Governor's Office on Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, and the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board. In the Department of Legislative Services, Amendment number 1 and 2 adds funds for a study and a consultant contingent on legislation. In the Judiciary, Amendments number 3 and 4 add funds contingent on legislation. In the Maryland Energy Administration, Amendment 5 restricts funds to be used instead of the Department of Human Services for energy assistance. In the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, Amendment number 6 restricts funding to be used for a grant, and Amendment number 7 modifies language to increase a restriction. In the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board, Amendment number 8 modifies language to add requirements. Move the adoption of Amendments 1 through 8.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentlelady from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to take out Amendment number 2 for discussion, please.
Okay.
That's fine.
You want me to ask my questions now?
Yes. Yes.
Ooh, I can breathe. This is wonderful. Thank you. I might just ask questions on all the amendments. Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment, can you explain to me what it does, Amendment number 2?
Yes, it's a $750,000 contingent appropriation based on House Bill 498's passage. I don't have my reading glasses on. It might be 496.
496.
Yeah.
And I know there's been a lot of talk about family leave and medical insurance program, and I haven't had time to catch up on where we are with it with the House and the Senate bill. Can you explain where we are with the two bills with the family leave?
The bill 496 left this floor not 4 or 5 days ago. It's over in the Senate. I can't speak to where the Senate is.
No, my question is, what does it do? What does it leave in the bill?
You know, I'm not going to speak to the policy because I don't really think that's what this debate or what this budget action does. I think that the chair of the committee not 4 or 5 days ago did a really good job in debating the policy. What this does is actually just provide $750,000 that says if we're going to do it, right, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Let's have a study and do it right. So really all this amendment is, I think we should all be able to support. It just says, let's have good government. Let's give the Department of Legislative Services the tools they need to give us the tools to do it right. Now, if you want to oppose the policy, you had a vote on that. If you want to oppose the policy, I'm certain you'll have another vote on that next year, but this is about getting it right. I think all of our citizens want, if we're going to do the policy, to get it right. So restricting or taking out this money does nothing but impinge upon our ability to get this.
So it would be fair to say that the bill, and I haven't read the whole bill, but it would be fair to say that the bill has been struck and it's replaced with a commission, and this is the funding for the commission?
We had a debate on the policy.
I'm asking you the question of what we have left in that we're funding here.
This is just funding. So it's on page, I can read you the portion of the bill. It's on page 2 of the bill. The Maryland Department of Labor and the Department of Legislative Services shall jointly provide staff for the commission. So if we're going to ask the Department of Legislative Services to staff this commission, an already strapped department, we need to give them the resources to do it. I think that's common sense.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was for outside consultants. So it's to give legislative services some more staffing to staff this. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Also, I think there was a line item in the budget for $25 million for the family leave. Do you know what that was for?
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's in the fenced off items. It's not contained here. It's to staff up the Department of Labor again, so that we don't want to see what happened with unemployment insurance, right? All of our constituents called us during in the last year that Department of Labor was not able to sort of service that. We don't want to see that if we have this program. Again, it's about getting it right, so that our inboxes and our mailboxes and our voicemails don't fill up with people who aren't able to access this if we do it. So we'll get to that. That's a fenced item at the end. But these are just about funding it to get it right, which whether you're for the policy or not, I hope that you could be for getting it right if we do it.
Well, I guess my question is, part of it is we're studying the policy, and I'm not sure we give much direction to the commission in this particular in the bill that's left, because you're basically saying to the commission, here's what we want you to do. But we, at the same time, we're saying we want to study it, I believe you said first, to get it right. We also are including $25 million in the budget to ramp it up. But we don't know what we're ramping up because we haven't studied it yet, so I'm a little confused.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to be clairvoyant here to know that we're going to do family and medical leave. We're going to do it, so we might as well get ready to do it, and we might as well get ready to do it right.
It also, I didn't see in here, I think it would be good if we were studying it to give them very clear direction. And some of it is clear that in one place it says, you know, how much the employee would pay. People don't realize that this act, someone's going to have to pay for it. In many cases, it's going to be our employees and our small businesses. And I don't see really anything in here about the impact of inflation on small businesses or how this could affect them. And also, the other question, and these are things we hope the commission would study, and when we leave here, we're not going to have any say in what they decide. But one of the questions that I was thinking about myself is all the people that already have benefits, they already have family medical leave, like state employees, but it's not as robust as what's being discussed. How will that be affected? And all those things will be discussed by this commission, but I think it would be important for us to tell them, you know, some of the things we'd like to know coming back, and I think it's premature to put $25 million in the budget for a study we haven't done yet, and this study will, the study should come first, then the money in the budget, but this is just about the particular study here. And you know, I have a question too. It's about, you know, you just talked about unemployment and what a disaster it's sort of been for every single one of us in here, trying to trying to navigate that system. And we're looking now, before we've even fixed the unemployment system, is starting another program, which is going to be, I think, even more problematic. So just those are considerations. I personally don't think we should be looking at it in this direction. I know you like to study, but we got $25 million in the budget as we're studying it, which I think is putting the cart before the horse. So I'm going to vote against this $750,000 and wish that the committee would do more work on it as they move forward first. Thank you.
Yep.
I call for just a vote on this amendment, Madam Chairman. Madam Speaker.
Okay.
So is it all right if we vote on Amendment 1?
Certainly.
Yeah, okay. Let's do that. I move Amendment number 1.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? The ayes have it. Chair, amendment has been adopted.
Thank you.
Chairwoman?
And now we will move, you want to vote on Amendment number 2, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Young lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, and thank you for the maskless standing up to debate. It's much nicer. Would the floor leader rise, please? I have a question for you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So, you know, just so the public who's watching this understands, because it wasn't really clear, most of you should have a copy of the budget. We're talking about the Family Medical Leave Insurance Program and the $750,000 in general funds for the appropriation for DLS, Department of Legislative Services. And the language says for the costs and consultant fees. I thought you said there wouldn't be consultants.
I did not say that.
Oh, okay, so I misunderstood you.
I said that provide DLS with the support that they need, which in this instance is consultants to
Okay,
do the work that they need.
Can you tell us anything about that? The consultants, have they?
It's common practice. We did it with the blueprint, for example. We've done it on lots of large pieces of legislation where we need to, it doesn't make sense from a budgetary standpoint to ramp up DLS staffing only to have to ramp back down after the project's done. It makes better sense to hire a consultant. And I think that makes budgetary sense. I'd hope we'd all support that.
Okay, and this is going to, just so I understand it, this will study setting up a family medical leave and insurance program in our state.
I think that we've said that, yes.
Okay, and then did I understand my colleague behind me here to say that later in the budget there's $25 million for the program?
In the fenced items, it's not contained in amendment number 2, but yes.
So we're going to put 25 million in a fund for a program we haven't set up yet.
We're going to put 25 million in a fund for a program that we will be setting up. I think the chairman has been pretty clear on that point. And we don't want to set up a program and then the Department of Labor doesn't have the staffing, doesn't have the ability to actually administer the program. That would be really political and legislative negligence of us.
So you're not
all of a
fencing it off.
All of a sudden our constituents are going to be relying on this paid family leave and Department of Labor is not going to be able to administer it. Don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so the 25 million will not necessarily be fenced off. It will be utilized for setting up a program that we're studying to set up.
Those are your words, but
Okay.
I think I'll
Thank you,
rely on
Madam
mine.
Speaker.
Okay.
So we have a separate vote on amendment number 2. I move amendment number 2.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
Did you vote? Clerk will take the call. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My understanding is that we also have, the minority party also wants to have a separate vote on amendment number 4. So I'm going to move amendment number 3. Okay? I move amendment number 3.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendment number 3 has been adopted.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman.
Frederick.
Okay. The chairwoman of the committee for the next amendment.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. I just had a quick question about amendment number 4. Could you let the chamber know what that amendment does?
Yeah, it's money for assistance with expungement. It was part of the bill that passed actually this House on cannabis. It was actually the Judiciary Committee amendment that we, in this bill, put some money behind. I think we did so in the bill itself. It does not, my understanding, expand expungement, but it does help assist folks who are seeking expungement.
Thank you. So what I briefly read this morning was that it was $2.5 million that's going to go towards individuals that have marijuana offenses on their record. And I just was curious to see if we've ever put millions of dollars behind other expungement efforts. Obviously, this is contingent on HB 837, which again puts marijuana on the ballot this year. But the greater issue that I have, to be honest with you, is that we're putting $2.5 million towards marijuana once again. So I'd like, Madam Speaker, if we could take a vote on this specific amendment. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Chair, Judiciary Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd ask the body to support the amendment of the Appropriations Committee. We asked, we passed as part of House Bill 837 this money to assist Marylanders who may have difficulty figuring out what they're able to do with regards to expungements after we legalize marijuana here over the next couple years. I think it is something that we absolutely should do because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of Marylanders who have been impacted by the criminalization of marijuana for quite a while. This money will go to MLSC. It will allow them to support organizations who can inform people and help them walk through the process, if they need to be walked through the process, to get the support they need to get this off their record and to move forward with their lives. And so I'd ask you to vote green on the amendment.
And I would just,
Yes.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. And again, I would just encourage my colleagues to vote against it. And the reason for it, regardless of how you feel one way or the other about the issue of marijuana, You know, the state has allowed for the use for medical marijuana. We've decriminalized marijuana. We've now put it on the ballot. And now we're paying millions of dollars in taxpayer dollars, millions of taxpayer dollars to, you could almost argue, encourage people to use marijuana more, because it's a, you know, we're going to be running ads to help people. So I, again, would encourage my colleagues to vote against it. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Just, I appreciate, thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the comments. This amendment doesn't at all encourage people to use marijuana more. We're making a fundamental change in our law. This is educating people about their legal rights and how to access the legal process. It's not, to me, at all about cannabis. It's just about making sure Marylanders are able to engage with the legal system in a way that we're allowing through law. So I would stand with the chairman and encourage a green vote on this amendment.
Appropriations Chair.
I move amendment number 4.
Question for the House is the amendment number 4. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, to explain my vote.
Gentleman from Hartford and Baltimore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
To
I mean,
explain
this,
his vote.
first off, we're putting the cart before the horse with this. We haven't legalized anything yet. But if it was a case and we're going to legalize this, why wouldn't you just expunge everybody all at the exact same time? And I guess we need to pay for these expungements for a small group of people, but lawyers and the judiciary will make a large amount of money for those people who have to pay for their expungements themselves. So it does seem very hypocritical. So I'm voting no for this, because if you were true to your beliefs, what you would do is say, on the passing of marijuana, we're just going to expunge all the records. But we're not saying that. We're going to say taxpayers are going to pay for the expungement for some, but the rest of you are going to have to pay for your own expungements. So I'm voting no on this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further debate? Clerk will take the call. The amendment passes.
Madam Speaker,
Madam Appropriations Chair.
I now move amendments 5 through 8.
Question for the House is the adoption of amendments 5 through 8. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. The amendments have been passed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Chair.
We're now going to turn to amendments 9 through 17 pertaining to the Department of Budget Management and Department of Transportation and Department of Natural Resources. In the Department of Budget Management, Amendment 9 strikes language. In the State Highway Administration, Amendment number 10 restricts funding to be used for a project. In the Port Administration, Amendment 11 restricts funds pending a performance audit. In the Maryland Transit Administration, Amendment number 12 modifies reporting language, and Amendment 13 strikes funds pending reports in the Purple Line project. In the Department of Natural Resources, Amendment 14 strikes language. Amendment 15 strikes the use of grant and requires a report. Amendments 16 and 17 restrict funds pending reports. Move the adoption of Amendments 9 through 17.
All in favor signify by saying aye on amendments 9 to 17. Any opposition? Amendments have been adopted.
Madam Speaker, I now move amendments 18 through 26, which pertain to the Maryland Department of Health, Department of Labor, and the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. In the Maryland Department of Health, Amendments 18 and 19 modify language to add requirements and alter a due date. Amendments 20 and 22 restrict funds pending 3 reports. In the Department of Labor, Amendments 23 restricts funds pending a report. In the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, Amendments 24 modifies language to increase the amount restricted. Amendments 25 and 26 strike language. Move the amendments.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The amendments have been adopted.
All right, we now move to amendments 27 through 35. Pertaining to the Maryland State Department of Education and the University System of Maryland and Maryland Higher Education Commission. In the State Department of Education, amendments 27 and 28 modify requirements of non-public school aid and scholarship programs. Amendments 29 and 30 add language to specify eligibility requirements for non-public schools, nursing program, and restore funding. In the Interagency Commission on School Construction, Amendment 31 modifies language to increase the amount restricted, and Amendment 32 strikes language for the University of Maryland, Baltimore campus. Amendment 33 strikes language in the Maryland Higher Education Commission. Amendments 34 restricts funds pending a report, and Amendment 35 is technical. Move the adoption of the amendments 27 through 35.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority leader.
I'd like to certainly go ahead and proceed with the adoption of Committee Amendment 27, but I would like to separate Amendment 28 for discussion, debate, and a vote, please.
That's fine. Yes. Amendment number 27, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment 27 has been adopted. Minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment 28, if you have an opportunity to look at the committee reprint and report, it's at the language I'm discussing, page 169 flowing to 170. It deals with the program that we all colloquially know as BOOST. BOOST is a program that is designed to help generally lower income families get some assistance in seeking educational options that they believe, that their parents, their families believe are better for them for a wide variety of reasons. And these people, by and large, are taxpayers of the state of Maryland. They contribute in ways large and small to the betterment of our state. I forgot I can take this off. That actually does help a little bit. And so what the amendment does, I'm going to give you a little bit of factors that maybe you don't know about BOOST. The 2021, there's a committee that oversees BOOST and takes a lot of statistics and a deep dive into what BOOST does and what it doesn't. In the 2020-21 school year, every student in the state of Maryland who was awarded a BOOST scholarship, every student was eligible for free and reduced price meals. Every student. This is not directing funds to the upper middle class or the wealthy to help send their kids to you know, Bullis and some of the top private schools in the country. And we have those in Maryland. We have some excellent private schools. I am proudly a product of a private school. I'm not Catholic, but I was afforded an opportunity to go to Bishop Walsh High School in Cumberland, Maryland. It made a tremendous difference in my life, despite the fact when I went there, my mother was a single mom. She was putting herself through law school. One of my grandfathers was a truck driver. The other one was a coal miner. We were not to the manor born, and yet we had an opportunity to go to that school. It's a fine, fine school. As I've said it before, it produced that gentleman whose portrait is up there behind our current speaker, and as well as produced other members of this assembly over the years. I had an opportunity to do that. Every student awarded that BOOST scholarship is eligible for free and reduced meals. 57% of the students who got the BOOST scholarship to help their families out, their moms, their dads, to help them just get a little bit more, were minorities. 57% in the 2020-21 year, minorities. 1,013 of the 3,556 awardees, roughly a third, were English language learners. There are people who've come to our communities and they believed, and their parents, their families, their guardians believed that it was best for them to attend a school, it was best for their academic upbringing, it was best for perhaps other reasons. 1,013 of 3,556 were English language learners, people that otherwise this body tends to try to do all that they can to help integrate into our communities and into our societies. Their families thought BOOST would help them do that. 37% roughly of the recipients lived in Baltimore City. 25% of the recipients lived in Baltimore County. A little under 13% of the recipients lived in Prince George's County, and 10% of the recipients lived in Montgomery County. I went to law school to avoid math, but that's not hard math. It's about 85% of the recipients of the BOOST scholarship live in the state's 4 largest metropolitan and urban jurisdictions. Very few of them probably live in my jurisdiction, quite frankly. Boost is an important program. It has value. It has value in the lives of your constituents, and they show this to you year after year by their participation. And so what Amendment 28 does that we object to is Amendment 28 includes language you can find at page 169 and 170 that basically restricts ongoing and future recipients of the Boost Scholarship to students who are already in the program, so that they've already qualified in prior years, or their siblings. So if you're a new family who comes here and maybe is an English first learner, and maybe you come and you arrive in the Baltimore-Washington corridor and you're in 1st grade or 2nd grade or 4th grade, and your mom or your dad says, the public school in our community isn't working for us for whatever reason, and we think that there's a program that you would qualify at a parochial or private school near our home that might help you assimilate and integrate better, might help you learn English better, I don't know. If you don't have any siblings in the program and you weren't in the program last year, Amendment 28 says tough luck. Tough luck to that immigrant family. Tough luck to that family who maybe moved from one community into another and the public school system doesn't fit the particular needs of their child, but they weren't in the program last year because maybe they lived in another county where the needs did fit them. Tough luck. You don't qualify. That's what Amendment 28 does, and it is a de facto effort long term to eliminate the Boost program, because eventually the kids that were in the program years ago and their siblings will age out. They'll no longer be students, and new people won't be allowed to get into the program. That is why we believe that the committee's language, the committee did, I think, an outstanding job with so many aspects of this budget, but we think that we continue to make this same mistake with respect to this restriction on the Boost language, and we would hope that the body would reject Amendment 28. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the subcommittee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I want to say the reason that all of the students are from low income in this program is because we say so. We mandate it. And that's been controversial in the past, frankly, and I welcome the minority leader's support of that portion of the statute. Look, as for the spending on the Boost program, what we want to look at, and I know what the Ways and Means Committee looks at when they do education policy, is outcomes, right? That's what we need to be concerned about, is outcomes. So what are the outcomes of these voucher programs? What do the studies tell us about them? Well, first and foremost, students who leave the public school for private school under the voucher programs do not have increased test scores. They do not have better outcomes. That's a fact. In fact, many studies actually suggest that the outcomes for math and science in particular are actually worsened when the student leaves the public school with a voucher for private school, actually worsened. The outcomes are actually worse. So to suggest that we're helping these students, I think is a fallacy. Look, there are a couple things that I just want you to keep in mind that this committee has put into this reduction. First, all the students who are currently in the program are staying in the program, right? We are not going to kick any kid out of the program. A kid is in their school. We recognize that. We're going to keep them in their school, right? We're going to let them matriculate through. And in that way, this program is actually going to continue as it phases out for another dozen years. But just one last thing on outcomes. Why would this be? Why would this be intuitively that our outcomes are not better? It's really because the kids that are availing themselves of the voucher program tend to be kids that are doing well in public school, right? A parent who goes and finds this voucher program, this innocuous Boost program, tracks it down, works out their ability for their kid to get to this private school, is a parent who's engaged with their family and doing better in public school. So I don't think we're really helping students here, and it comes down to where we want to spend precious public dollars, right? Do we want to spend them on voucher programs for private school, or do we want to spend them in public schools? I'm going to say this. I'm going to give it to you. $10 million, that's what the program is. It's not going to make or break our public schools, right? It's not going to make or break it. But part of this action is to contain this program. Because what we've seen in other states is $10 million turns into 20, 20 into 50, and before you know it, the program's $200 million. Okay? And that is a detriment to our public schools. So I ask that you support the committee, you contain the program, and vote green. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise, please?
Floor leader.
Yes, sir.
What were the statistics or the outcome percentages, or what were you saying? Could you please repeat that for me?
I don't believe, and studies have shown, outcomes are not improved under these voucher programs.
No. Okay, so, but you were saying studies. What are the studies you're referencing?
I'm not going to read you a bunch of studies on the House floor, but if you'd like to come to my office later, we can go through them. I have them. And
No,
happy
I've
to
got
do that.
time now. Hold on, let me take my mask off. Who did the studies?
Again, I'm not.
That's a simple question. Who did the studies?
Yeah, I'm not going to read them to you on the House floor. But I'm
Madam
happy to
Speaker,
come
I
by.
have probably a minute. They've got the phone. They can answer the question.
I researched the studies on my own. I'm not sure DLS has the studies in front of them, so I'm not waiting on a phone call. Just not going to read you a study.
Okay,
on the House
the
floor.
question was, you made the allegation on the floor that these studies show that better outcomes happen in a school system as opposed to pulling a student out in Boost and giving them another option.
Did say
I'm
that.
saying, give me the evidence on the House floor as to why you said that.
There are metrics reported to the Boost Board. You can look at those. There's also national studies that have been done in Florida, in Ohio, Indiana, and other places that really cite these studies.
Who sponsored the studies?
There's a Stanford study, for example.
Who sponsored the studies?
There's a Stanford is an entity.
Okay, so you're telling me that I can come to your office later and you're going to show me a Stanford study that's going to show that Boost programs and giving students vouchers to get out of failing schools is a worse outcome than giving them a chance to go into another school and really have a great shot at having a future. And
That's
you're saying
exactly
that's a
what I'm telling
Stanford
you.
study.
In fact, I'm happy we'll come over, you and I can read it together. One of the most profound studies, I think, is the one that says that actually the metrics on math and science in particular are worse. And actually, you should know, Delegate, that only half of the teachers in these voucher schools, only half of them are actually certified. I mean, that's an astounding statistic. And if you want
Madam
me
Speaker,
to...
he's not answering the question. I'm back to
Point of order,
who
Madam
did the study.
Speaker.
Majority Leader.
The gentleman has repeatedly interrupted responses from the floor leader.
I'm having to interrupt him because he's not answering the question.
I'm going to suggest this. I'm yielding. That's a courtesy on the House floor. It's not my job to answer questions for you. If you want to look up studies, you have free will, Delegate. You are an independently elected delegate. You can look up studies. That is not my job. My job is a courtesy to answer the questions as best I can, and I am.
Mr. Floor Leader, it became your job when you stood on the House floor and referenced those studies.
I told you, there's a Stanford study. There's a study on math and science. We're going, with all due respect, Delegate, we're going a bit in circles here.
Okay, Madam Speaker, I'm elected from Eastern Shore voters to represent them. Every voter in my district, based on what they would have heard on the House floor if they were paying attention, would be asking a simple question, which is, show me the study. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Minority Leader.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, and I appreciate, my colleague, he said he's heard some studies, but one thing, I'm not an expert in the field, I wouldn't tell you that I am. One thing that I do think is clear, though, that there aren't a lot of significant studies that apply simply to us. I don't know what Florida's program is. I don't think, quite frankly, Florida's public schools are ranked terribly highly, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know the first thing about Florida's private schools. I do know something a little bit, and I think a lot of people in this room do, about Maryland's private schools. We have some of the most excellent schools that teach in the tradition of the Hebrew faith in and around the Baltimore communities and the Montgomery County communities. Excellent schools. We have some of the most outstanding archdiocesan schools, both in the Archdiocese of Baltimore and the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. Outstanding schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. We have some other schools that are non-denominational that exist throughout the state. I can't imagine that there is a single person in this room who cannot think to themselves or point to themselves of a private institution within their county, within their community, that is well known for being a good school. I think that we have to acknowledge and accept that as fact. And so I don't know, if there's a Maryland study to suggest that these kids' outcomes are somehow being materially affected or not. I do appreciate my colleague from Prince George's County's comment, which I think is true. There's a pretty good chance that probably these kids, it's not changing their outcomes because their parents are engaged. And that's what we care about the most, because I believe, as much as I think good teachers are a big part of a child's life, the number one thing that probably determines whether a child is going to be successful or have a chance for success as an adult are that child's parents, or parent, or guardian, or grandma, or aunt or uncle who've stepped up in that kid's life. That's what matters. That's what sets them on that path. 6-year-olds, I have one myself, they're not really self-starters. You know, 6-year-olds would be happy to watch TV and play Nerf gun battle all day long. It requires a parental authority. It requires a family basis to get them invested and excited about education. And if these families decided, for whatever reason, that private school opportunity is what works best for their children, and they are of lesser means, and they don't have the opportunities to send their kid to DeMatha or to Bishop Walsh or to Loyola Blakefield or some of these wonderful high-end schools, nationally known schools. When you say you went to Loyola Blakefield, people know what you mean. When you say you went to DeMatha and you got an opportunity there, people understand what that means. And these people don't have those opportunities for their kids, and the Boost program gives them a little bit more of a chance to avail themselves of that. That's what our concern is about. And with that, Madam Speaker, I would request that we separate and take a vote on Amendment 28.
Madam
Okay.
Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Well, your colleagues don't think so. Gentlelady from Carroll.
Speaker, and I will be brief. I dislike math as much as my friend, the minority leader. But I did read the report put out last year, presented to the Joint Committee. And the numbers that jumped out to me, out of the 3,556 students that received one of these scholarships, the number of applications that were put in for these scholarships was 6,077. So you can do that simple math. We said no to 2,521 students. We said, no, you're not going to get one. And if we restrict this further, what is that going to mean moving down the road? Obviously, it's a popular program. Obviously, it's a need and serves a need. And I think it's very important that we not go down this road of reducing the number of students who are able to access this important scholarship program. So I agree with my minority leader, and I hope that you will support saying no to this amendment. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I pulled up this Stanford study, and it's quite interesting, and I'm sure some of you will be interested to learn that the metrics they're using are test taking. The very things that we know in this body don't accurately reflect many populations, including populations in our lower income communities who do not take tests very well. They are not looking at the outcomes over their lifetime of earning. They are not looking at their college acceptance. They are not looking at any other metrics except for taking tests. So if we're going to talk about a study that shows that vouchers do or do not work on this floor, perhaps we would consider what the study was designed like, because that one was designed very poorly. And in fact, all the ones they referenced were designed the exact same way.
Gentleman from Calvin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for calling on me.
That's what I do.
I know you hate it, but it's like, I
Gentleman has
appreciate
something
it.
he wants to say?
I appreciate it. So this conversation is really about, in my opinion, competition. There are some that don't believe in competition when it comes to education, and then there are others that do. Really is that simple. Here we are, we live in a capitalist country, and we have competition in all fields, but we're afraid of competition in education? Why? Why would we be afraid of competition in education? Just 2 weeks ago, Project Baltimore, staggering learning loss, 85% of Maryland students tested were not proficient in math and reading. This isn't picking on any given school, this is statewide. That's a result of not having competition. I've spoken about this before on this floor. I went to one of those schools that wasn't so great. And that school was in Baltimore. And I would love nothing more than to see the schools in Baltimore become great schools. You want to see people move into the city of Baltimore? pass a bill that allows educational freedom in the city of Baltimore, and you will find tens of thousands of people moving into that city, because then the money follows the student. Imagine the educational innovation that would occur as a result of competition. Imagine the lives that you would save as a result of competition. Imagine the communities that would rebuild because people would realize that now Baltimore is an incubator for educational freedom. When we talk about this, when Republicans talk about this, this is a principled argument, because we know that this is the way out and up. Competition in education, not being stuck going to that failed public school in the district that you go to, but instead being able to choose the school that best fits your needs, no matter the school. I've said this before. Nancy Pelosi, to her credit, went to a all-girls Catholic school in Baltimore City. To show you how far I go back, my grandfather knew her father, and they were friends. That school closed just a couple of years ago because the pandemic put the final, shot in the heart of that poor school. And Nancy Pelosi basically said nothing other than, boy, I had a good time at that school, it was great, but never once did she offer any kind of federal assistance or any kind of other ideas of how to keep it open. A school that serves the poorest of the poor and gets them up and out. We call that competition. And we need competition in education. We need competition throughout the state in education. And there's no place that needs it more than the city of Baltimore. And I say that, once again, it's not a criticism. It's because I'm from there. Proudly. Proudly. And I don't know how you can wake up every day in Baltimore City as an elected official and say, this is okay. Kerwin's going to solve it. 4 years later, nothing has been done. In fact, things have gotten worse. And yet the same people get up every day and say, oh, don't worry, it's going to get better. Generation after generation after generation. God help us. When will it change? And then, after running the city into the ground, they moved to Delaware. Pretty amazing to me. Pretty amazing to me.
What's the relevancy? Can you stick on your reason for the being against the amendment?
Sure.
Okay, listen.
Escaping responsibility.
We got other people who want to make comments as well.
Escaping responsibility for one's actions. That's what moving means. Once again, Madam Speaker, I don't understand how people can wake up day after day and look around in their community in the city of Baltimore, where I'm from proudly, and say, this is okay. I'm okay with the status quo. I'm okay with no competition in education. I'm okay with this. Shameful. And yes, Madam Speaker, for all those reasons, there's no way I'm voting for this bill. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from
Madam
Prince
Speaker.
George's.
Is that Prince George's?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have to get up and stand up on this bill on behalf of, I don't need any notes or anything. I need to get up and stand up on behalf of students. In doing so, many of y'all know I've been a long-time supporter of this because I believe in supporting education for everybody. A child that goes to a private school in my district is still one of my constituents. That family is one of my constituents. So you have to support them. And in Prince George's County, where I live, if you took a look at our private schools, our parochial schools, some of them are in worse condition than the public schools. I've heard for years the answer is, oh, if they just went to the public schools, it'd be okay. Well, let me give you another example on that. We've got a great program down in southern Prince George's County at John Hanson Montessori. But the Montessori program is overcrowded. It's packed. So what do? If you're the parent taking the initiative to give your kid, which we all do as parents, to try and give our children the best opportunity of success in education when the program's overcrowded and it's sold out. I always go back to a conversation I had with our late speaker, the coach, when we were talking, he asked me back in his chamber, why do you support this? I don't see why. And I gave him a simple answer. I said, I had a constituent that was in Glass Manor. She lost 2 of her sons to gang violence. She said, I'm not going to lose another one. I'm not going to lose another one. And if he has to go to our local school, I can't take that chance. She worked several jobs to do whatever she could to just come up with the money to pay for a school for safety concerns, for safety reasons. You have to understand that when people say we want to support these parochial schools or these private schools or these religious schools, or they could be different type of schools, private charter schools that you have there, it's because everybody believes in trying to do the best. I don't think there's one of my colleagues in this chamber that doesn't believe we need to not fund public school education like we do. And I applaud it. In all my years down here, we've never, ever sacrificed our public schools. But in doing this program, you've heard numbers. It's changing lives. People are using this program just to try and give themselves an opportunity at a different education. At a different education. Public schools in Maryland, we take pride in them. But I have to stand up for those children, those students that I know that go to St. Mary's Piscataway, that go to St. Columba, that go to Henson Valley Montessori, where they have to use a church. They have to use a church to operate as a school. And many of you, I don't know if you know, but from my finance background, schools lose money. You do not make money in education. Most schools lose money. They rely on endowments and things of that nature. So if you're operating a school and you're in the black, you can't expect to have those improvements. So if the schools are losing money, but they're still doing that chance to educate these kids, then we need to follow. So I'm standing to say something about the boost because it seems to be working. It's not like there's a shortage of people not applying for it, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you,
Madam.
Madam.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, my wife happens to be a principal at a private religious school. And some interesting facts about this school is that it is very diverse. It's very diverse religiously. It's very diverse ethnically. She has over 20 teachers in her employ, and 25% of those teachers are African Americans. Her school is very well known in our area. She has a waiting list, and that waiting list is pretty long. She is known for being able to teach her kids how to read, how to write, how to do math, how to do science. She gets calls from teachers in the public school system all the time when her kids will transition into the public schools, thanking her for what she was able to teach her kids. An interesting fact with all this is 80% of the students that she has there are from public school teachers. They have recognized the quality of education that she has been able to deliver. And they have seen her students in their class far more advanced than their classmates. So this idea that somehow these schools are behind in math, in science, it's just not true. There is a lot of more personal attention that is given to the students. And this idea that, oh, it's only the best students who come there, that's not true either. She has a kid right now that the parent was very concerned about putting him in a public school because he has spina bifida. And her answer was, we can do it. We will figure out a way how to do it. And let me tell you something. I've had kids that have learning disabilities that were in the public school system. And the public school system did crap when it came to them. And we had to move them out of there so that they could get the education and the help that they needed. We do need competition in this. And parents have the right to be able to turn somewhere else if they have to. My youngest son, I homeschooled. I did it. I'm not a teacher, but I did it. And if I hadn't have done it, he'd be a ditch digger today. Instead, guess what, folks? He owns not just one business, he owns 2 businesses. And when I had the counselor from the public high school say to me, Delegate Boatler, well, he didn't say Delegate Boatler, he said, Mr. Boatler, we're going to give your son the minimal he'll need to pass high school. And I got right up in the guy's face and I said, I don't think so. Let me tell you something. Because of the action that I took, he graduated from University of Maryland with a 3.5 average. So I am up here saying this is a bad, bad amendment. We fought for years. I introduced the first BOST bill in this General Assembly. And we fought for years to get the little pittance of money that you people want to give us. So I'm urging all of you to please vote against this amendment. Thank you.
Gentlelady from Baltimore City.
Madam Speaker, I want to just help turn down the temperature a little bit, people. I know we're all very passionate. We care about our children and our neighbors and our friends, but I just want to clarify a few of the statements that I've heard on the floor. So I heard my good friend from Calvert County has a bit of a mysterious bio about his geographical origins, but that aside, I think it's important to lift up that the high school he attended, which was in Baltimore County, not in Baltimore City, but in terms of Baltimore City, there are notions that I think go underappreciated here, that you can go to many schools that you'd want to go to. There's a stronger element of choice. That's why we were fighting for transportation assistance, because we don't have yellow buses that take kids from their homes to their schools. They're taking public transportation. If you go to a principal and there's space in a school, you could probably take your kid to virtually any school in the city. I think only about 40% of kids go to their local community schools. So I just want to put that out there. We also have the highest concentration of charter schools in the entire state. Most of them are in Baltimore City. So that adds to the mix of choice that's available to our students. I am a proud Baltimore City public schools parent. My son is thriving in city schools, and there are many colleagues among us who are proud graduates of Baltimore City public schools as well, not including to my immediate right and right in front of me. I won't name the schools because I don't want it to get ugly in here because they're not the same school. But that proud rivalry aside, I think what's most important about this amendment is that we're not showing any type of disregard for those that are currently availing themselves of the BOOST program. That's not what's happening here. But what we are doing is we're underscoring our commitment to public dollars for public education. I think a lot of the passion pleas I've heard from colleagues that are in support of this program are still disconnected from the fact that under our state constitution, we are required to provide a free and adequate public education. That is the charge that we're sent to uphold every time we're here, and I think we need to be reminded that's the focus of what we're trying to accomplish in this budget. So I know that sometimes it's fun to talk about Baltimore City public schools, particularly if you do not live there, never lived there, and never enrolled a child there. But for someone who is doing that, someone who's doing that with my family, I think it's important that every resource that we have in this state goes to educating our students. And Baltimore City public school students have a higher proportion of students on IEPs, of students where English is not their first language, and other learning challenges that, quite frankly, many of our private institutions are not interested in educating because they they have that opportunity to say they don't want to teach people certain learning styles and challenges and needs. So with that being said, I'm proud of the work product of the committee. I'm proud of this amendment, and I urge all of my colleagues to vote affirmative.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker,
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Talbot to explain his vote. 2 minutes.
Thank you. I won't need 2 minutes. This boost program is just tied to so many heart-wrenching situations in our district. Talbot, Caroline, Dorchester, and Wacomico counties on the Eastern Shore. While the votes are still up, I just want to remind everyone, we're debating a $10 million program. $10 million. If you look at your list, we've got additions, 50 million, 50 million, 40 million. This program, $10 million. This is not a budget changing program, and it goes so far to help so many. It's bewildering why we would restrict it.
Madam Speaker.
I'm a red vote, and I'd encourage anyone who has the time to change the red.
Gentleman lady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my green vote on this amendment, one thing I've learned over the years with the Education Subcommittee, with my master's in education, is that the most important thing that really impacts a student's success is parental involvement and the parent's interest in their child's education. So explaining my vote on this amendment, let's be clear that students who end up in these programs do have a similar characteristic. They have the parents who care. In fact, these kids are likely to succeed wherever they go. We've talked about studies on the House floor today. There are studies that say that vouchers work, and there are studies that say that vouchers don't work. But what I do know is that when we pull out motivated students who are most certainly creating a brain drain in some of our public schools, and we are defunding our public schools, but more fundamentally, that the Boost program does nothing to improve public school education for the vast majority of our students in the state who do attend public school. We need to fix those schools, and that's why I'm a green vote on this amendment.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my vote, the phrase has been used, failing schools. The assumption is that every student who has ever joined the Boost program came out of a failing school. I'm not even sure what that is, but in fact, I don't believe they all do. In fact, the first year the Boost program was installed, 72% of the students who availed themselves of that scholarship were already enrolled in a private school. This was used as a way to help those students who were already there. We weren't yanking students out of schools and quote unquote rescuing them. We were finding students and finding ways to get them there free. It freed up other money for those schools to give scholarships to other students, maybe sports players, who knows? So this program is not working. We need to wind it down, and therefore I'm voting yes on this amendment.
Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for the last 2 years, our students have been denied athletics, forced to be masked during school hours all during the day. And in my district, over 34% of the parents withdrew their children to find an education that the local community schools were not even providing because their kids couldn't even go to school. And yet in the last 2 years, the budget has included nearly $200 million for those empty seats. So to appropriate $10 million for needy children who need a voucher to be able to go to school that actually provides them an education is pittance when you compare the $200 million for those chairs that they had to leave. We can do better. Washington, D.C., 20 million. Louisiana, 50 million. Maryland, we have a much stronger budget base, particularly with the recent funding levels. We have a $7 billion surplus, and that's the reason, Madam Speaker, that I voted against this amendment. We need to do better for our children and provide those vouchers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Last one, gentleman from Baltimore County.
Madam Speaker, thank you. One thing that we're failing to forget by not funding any more children to go to these schools, we're basically giving them a they're not going to survive. You have to have children to keep coming into the school to keep it going. So let's say if a child's in the 3rd grade right now and they have no kids to backfill because they don't have the boost money, guess what? That child in the 3rd grade might not make it to the 8th grade or whatever grade they're going to attend. And I've heard a lot of talk about studies and all that. Well, let me tell you a little study.
Is the gentleman explaining his vote?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I'm explaining my vote. I would like to see us all support the amendment to keep boost just the way it is, because if we don't, and we don't support the children that are in school now, they're not going to be able to go through school. Because if you don't have the what I'm saying, I'm going to repeat it one more time, and hopefully you understand. If you don't have the kids coming in the lower grades to keep going, the schools are not going to be able to make it. I mean, it's common sense. If you don't have enough kids in the school, it's going to fail. And that's why I'm voting the way I am. And just real quick, the other reason is because Bob Long has his own study. I hear my wife's stories every day at the kitchen table. And I urge everybody to change their vote to red on this. Thank you.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment passes. Appropriations Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move amendments 29 through 35.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendment has been adopted.
Thank you. And now the
Madam
last set
Chair.
of amendments, amendments 36 through 48, pertaining to the Department of Commerce, the Department of the Environment, the State Reserve Fund, deficiency appropriations, and back of the bill sections. In the Department of Commerce, amendments 36 and 37 restricts funds pertaining to 2 reports. Amendment 38 modifies language restricting funds. In the Department of the Environment, Amendment 39 restricts funds pending a report. In the State Reserve Fund, Amendment 40 modifies language restricting funds for the legislative priorities. Amendment 41 specifies the use of deficiency for child care stabilization grants. Amendments 42 and 43 modify language defining the budget amendment process and increase the amount of funds restricted pending a report. Amendments 44 through 47 restrict funds pending reports. Amendment 48 is technical. Move the adoption of amendments 36 through 48.
On the amendments, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes. Go ahead.
Madam Speaker, move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Before we go to our 3rd reading calendar, just want to remind everyone, we come to the floor each day with the assumption that each member who participate in debate is honest and accurate in their comments. Let's take care not to inadvertently accuse each other of being less than that. I heard things today that was disturbing. You get heated up in the moment, but just keep in mind that eyes are watching you, all of us. With that, quorum call.
Madam Speaker. I'll cancel it.
Not working.
She did it, okay. Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There's 121 members present. This House is still in session. Calendar of third reading House bills, number 97. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1121, Motor Vehicle Administration Voluntary Developmental Disability Self-Disclosure Envelope.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to begin by thanking the committee for your diligence and really hard work on this bill. I did not anticipate that it would be as controversial as it ended up being. The amended version of the bill is not exactly what I intended initially, but I just want to explain. 12 years ago, I gave birth to my first child, and of course, if you're a parent, you know when you first have a child, you look at them and you think this child is perfect. It would only be a year and a half before I would realize that there was something different about my child that was not typical. Having explained before this body before just how many relatives I have babysat many a child, I have many nieces and nephews, and had not yet seen the type of differences in a child that I saw in mine. It began with a speech delay and other behaviors that were not typical that I did not understand, and ended up being a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. I have spent the last 12 years of my child's life fighting for him. This binder right here is full of notes from every single meeting I have ever had with the school system regarding my child's education. Every accommodation, every resource, every tool that I fought for him to have for equity's sake, so that he stands the chance of having a successful, thriving future, just like his typical peers in the classroom. For me, that goes beyond just what happens in his K through 12 years. I am trying to prepare my child for a society that he doesn't naturally fit in. I'm trying to prepare him for how he will cope with things that most of us do not have to think about how to cope with, how to regulate his emotions, how to process things slowly, how to remain calm in situations that are difficult. Children on the spectrum, adults on the spectrum, feel things very intensely, more than those of us who are considered neurotypical. The original intent of this bill was to put a notation on the driver's license that would be optional for persons on the spectrum. And I understood the concerns that advocates had, and I understand the work of the committee, and I thank them for it. But what I also want to submit to this body is that throughout this process, it became very clear that some of our friends in the disability advocacy community do not think from an inclusive perspective. And I really, really urge the body, just as I did throughout this process, to make sure that you hold them accountable when you're having conversations with them. Ask them, who has a seat at the table when you're making decisions about what policies to support and what policies to oppose? Because what I found is that when I raised challenges that I believed that someone on the spectrum might have, like my son, or people who are currently having, I was told those concerns are racial. They are not about a disability. I will share with you the story that I shared with the ENT committee the day of the bill hearing, that the impetus of this bill was to then ensure that persons on the spectrum, when engaging with law enforcement, have a fair opportunity to at least have law enforcement be notified that they're on the spectrum and that they should be handled with some care. And the weekend prior to my bill hearing, while canvassing with my boys for a primary election, knocking on the doors of my own party, my boy, my 12-year-old child, who's been doing this with me for 6-7 months, accidentally dropped literature on someone's back door instead of the front door. And 4 adults chased my child from the backyard to the street back to me and accused him of having stolen something. They were asking him, what did you take? What did you take? And reaching out to grab him, my 12-year-old child. Throughout the course of that interaction and that engagement, after apologizing for their behavior, they explained that they were all retired law enforcement enjoying their Saturday together, and that his behavior seemed suspicious. The intent of this bill is so that in the future, should I not be there, should he be older, should he be in a vehicle, should he be walking down the street, that I would be able to say, he at least could present a license and say, I'm on this, even if he can't verbalize it, I am on the spectrum, and it would be read on that license. It really was frustrating to me to share that story with some of the disability advocates and have them tell me, that sounds terrible, but that's racial. Compounding racial profiling with a disability, like someone on the spectrum, presents opportunities for terrible outcomes. And so that is why this bill was so important to me. The amended version is going to bring relief. It's going to help people. And that was the primary goal, is to ensure that persons who should so choose had an option to be able to present something to law enforcement, to be able to notify them. Please don't assume that my behavior is suspicious. Do not assume that I'm failing to comply. It is a part of my disability. And so I thank the committee for their work on this bill. And I do urge a green vote. But I also will tell you, you'll see this bill again next year because 17 other states, from Virginia, DC, New Jersey is taking it up right now in their assembly, Florida, have passed some variation of this bill where they put it on the license so that when your tag's being run, officers will see something in the system. And so this, for the next year, will be beneficial to people that are on the spectrum or have some sort of communication disorder. It's going to be incredibly helpful, but you'll see it again next year because it's still my desire to see it on the license. So I urge a green vote for this bill. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1121, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1201, Water Pollution, Oyster Repletion Supplemental Environmental Projects.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 130 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1201, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the bills and committee assignments.
Senate Bill 291, the President, Appropriations. Senate Bill 796, Senator Gazzoni, House Rules. Senate Bill 1007, Chair, Senate Budget and Taxation Committee, House Rules.
That ends the work at the desk. Committee announcements. Appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The full committee will not meet today except for at 12:15. I'd like to see the committee on the steps outside the committee room for a photo. Thank you.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House Judiciary Committee will have bill hearings starting at 1 o'clock today.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment and Transportation Committee will continue public hearings at 1 p.m.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That committee will meet at 1:30 for public hearings.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will resume public bill hearings at 1 p.m.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Economic Matters will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
Any caucus announcements? Recognizing the chair of the Harford County delegation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, unfortunately, I need the Harford County delegation emergency meeting following this floor session in the old Silver Room. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Okay. Quorum called before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Has Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There being 130 members present, the House is still in session, recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Thursday, March 24th at 10 a.m., Legislative Day, March 18th.